This is the hip mobility routine to do when you want to feel better in your hips. And as you go through this routine, I want you to think about two things. The first time you go through this routine, it's going to be super educational. You're going to learn some great exercises that you can do to feel better in your hips. And if you do the exercises, chances are you're going to feel better. But to really make a change in your body, to really get that constant ache and tightness out of your hips, to be able to move better and more freely, you need to do this routine consistently. So keep that in mind as you go through this routine. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is lie down on our back. We can place something underneath our head if we want, and we're going to pivot our hips side to side for 30 seconds. And it doesn't need to be anything big or overstretchy. We're simply letting our hips know that we're moving them today, that we want to increase mobility, flexibility, and stability in our hips. You will find as you come back to this routine, this will be easier, it will feel better, and your range of motion will increase. This is one of my favorite exercises to start with. From here, we're going to bring ourselves up, and we're going to do that same exercise, but we're going to be sitting up. We're leaning back. The feet are wider than the hips, and we're going to pivot our legs side to side for 30 seconds. Doing it for timing versus counting takes the pressure off. We don't need to rush. We can take our time. And we can come back to this routine noticing how much smoother and easier these movements feel. What we're doing is an internal and external rotation of the hips, reminding our body that we can move this way. That was 30 seconds. So now we're going to set up in our hip swivel position. I'm moving the timer to the side because it's important that we take a moment and set this up correctly. So we start with our legs like this, and then we pivot them over to the side. The legs can be close together, but if you're increasing your flexibility and you're able to, you can also make them a little bit wider, like in a 90-degree position on both legs. But for today, we're going to keep everything a bit closer. Our hands are going to go onto the floor, and we're going to very, very slowly lift and lower the back leg. We're going to lift up and down, and we're going to do this 8 times. So we're in number 2 and down. And you'll find that over time, 3. As you come back to this routine, 4, you're able to lift the leg up, 5, a little bit higher. 6, let's get 2 more times. 7, 1 more time. 8, and then we're going to slowly, slowly bring ourselves up. Now we're going to flip it over to the other side and set up in this hip stretched position. If for any reason this doesn't work for you, you feel it in your, let's say your front knee, you could put a yoga block or a blanket underneath your knee like this. We're focusing on the back leg. Your hands are down, and we're going to lift and lower 8 times. Now you'll find as you come back to this routine, you are able to lift the leg a little bit higher, maybe be a little bit more precise in your movement. Let's get 3 more times. Let's get 2 more times. Let's get 1 more time, and then bring that down. Bring yourself up, and then just take a second and notice how your hips feel better, more mobile, more warm, more flexible. We're going to go back to the first side. Now the movement we did before, we lifted the thigh up, and that is an external rotation of your femur, your thigh bone. Now we're going to do the opposite. So our hands are down, and if you cannot reach the floor, you can use a yoga block, and we're going to lift up the shin. So your hands are down, and you're going to lift and lower. And what this is, it's an internal rotation of your back leg, 3. And it's not going to be a gigantic movement. It's going to be a small movement. We have 4 more times. And if you cannot lift your leg up, It's all right. What you would do instead is you would push or anchor that back knee into the floor and build up your strength a little bit at a time. Let's get one more time. That was 8. So good. Let's go over to the other side. So your hands are on the floor, and if you cannot reach the floor, your hand's going to be on a yoga block. And again, the first movement, we lifted it up like this. The second movement, we're lifting the shin. So we're going to lift and lower. Now notice, without judgment, that one side might be easier than the other. Let that be okay. We have 4 more. We have 3 more. We have 2 more. One more time, pause for a second, and then slowly come up. Now, let's take a moment and notice the profound difference in our hips and how much better it feels. We're going to do one more super hip mobility exercise that's going to help us feel better in our hips and build stability and mobility. We're going to lie down on our back, the arms are out to the side, and we're going to cross the right ankle over the left knee. And then all we're going to do is move the right thigh away from us. The timer is on. We're going to do this for 30 seconds. We're trying to keep the rest of the body still. Now, it doesn't have to be a big, gigantic movement. All we're trying to do is remind the body, remind the brain, remind the hip joint that we can move there. And you'll notice when you come back to this exercise, when you come back to this class, you'll be able to do it in a way that feels more precise and then bring that down. Now, it might have seemed like a little movement for 30 seconds, but notice the difference between the two sides. How your right side might feel more awake, alive, alert, and your left side can't wait to feel that exercise. Cross the left ankle over the right knee. Arms are out to the side. For 30 seconds, we're simply going to press and release. Press and release. And you'll notice that it's a small, simple movement, but when we do these movements on a regular basis, our body adapts by getting more mobile, more flexible, more strong, and more importantly, better, healthier movement. Let's get it one more time, and then slowly, slowly come back. Notice how your hips feel. We're going to roll over to the side and bring ourselves up into a seated position. And I just want you to take a moment and notice the effect of this useful and usable routine. The most important thing about a routine like this is that it's done consistently, because it's with consistent practice over time that our body adapts by getting stronger, flexible, and more mobile. Know that this feeling of feeling better is available to you by simply doing these exercises.